Hi everyone, this is Caitlin with Kait's Collectibles, and I am back with a brand new review of the Figuarts Sailor Venus figure. So, with several of the Figuarts so far, they've done the first release, some of which have contained a bonus, whether it's a different faceplate or an additional piece, and some of them have had a second release. So, the Sailor Moon that I reviewed was the first edition, and she included an extra faceplate. Mercury and Mars didn't have any bonuses, and I believe they did second editions, at least for Mercury, if not Mars as well. And now I'm here with Venus, and this one is a second edition release. And she did not have any bonuses in the first one, so she includes all the same pieces in the second release as she does in the first edition. So I'm going to start out with her box to give you a bit of a look at that. So much like the other boxes, we've got Venus featured pretty prominently on the front, as well as the window for where she sits in the box. Her name underneath and to the side. And as you can see at the bottom, like with the others, we have the official sticker right down here. So again, look for that for authenticity. A lot of the bootlegs now will have a photocopy of the sticker. So when you're looking at it on, say, eBay, for example, it'll look like it has the sticker, but these two symbols are usually missing. So that's your giveaway on that. All of those things should be present. So being that Venus's main color is orange, orange is featured pretty prominently on her box. I know I had said that with Mars, I was a little bit surprised there seemed to be more purple in play than red on her box. Venus, the orange and yellow really are pretty prominent, so it's rather easy to tell what we're looking at here with her. The back of her box, much like the others, shows a couple of her sort of signature poses from the anime. It shows that she comes with Artemis. Sailor Moon came with Luna, so she's got the Artemis figure. And it shows a few of her different face plates. Just kind of gives you an idea of what the figure can do. Another cute little shot of her on the other side. And then we have her slightly more serious expression on the top, as well as a little silhouette. I like one of the small details here is there's some sort of heart shapes in her silhouette, and seeing as how some of her attacks, like the Love Me chain, for example, feature hearts. I just thought that was a really cute thing to include in her little standout there. So inside the box for Venus, she comes with a number of really nice pieces. Much like the others, they're enclosed in the plastic so that you can keep them in there if you're, say, storing the box without the figure in it, but you want a tidy place to keep all your pieces. That's where I tend to keep mine. She also came with the extra sort of eye bang plate with her Sailor V mask. And then she has her sort of happy, serious, shouting expressions and a number of different hands. And again, they kept with the much better theme of keeping things more contained in terms of the extra faces and hands, so that they actually have their own additional plastic cover there, so that when you open that top piece, they're not shooting out like a game of Pop-O-Matic Trouble. Now for Venus, I've got her with one of her extra hands here, where she's holding her V mask, so that you can kind of have her posed a few different ways with it. The figure itself, I really like. She looks like dead on perfect. The shading in her hair to give it a little bit of depth and not just have it be a flat yellow painted hair is really nice. There's a little bit of that shimmer to the color on her fuku, and the gold in the bow is quite nice. The paint job on her as well is really well done. I was looking mine over and I really couldn't see anything in terms of flaws. One of the harder to see details is the jewel in her tiara because of the color scheme, and with her bangs. It's really quite hard to see, but they did a nice job there as well. She has a similar base and stand to the others. So she's got her name, her symbol in yellow. Now, one feature that I was a little bit surprised about with this one, and I will have to check, I don't think it's because she's a second edition. It must have been the same with the first, but if you know, please comment below and let me know. Unlike the other figures, her feet only have articulation at the ankles. So one of the things I had commented on before was that I really liked that you could pose them a little bit more in terms of like doing a kick. And with a figure like her who's in high heels, you'd think you'd want some toe articulation there as well to make her feet a little bit more, dainty, I guess. As a result, I find it's not that she had a particularly high heel on her shoe, but they look kind of squat to me. The feet look really flat and they don't look very foot shaped. Like they look a little bit like a boot, to be honest. So that was a bit of a downside with her. But again, like the paint job is really nice. The ankle articulation is an absolute must. I just wish that her toes were able to point as well. I'll turn her to the side here and give you a little bit of a better view. I do find that they have over time improved. They've either improved or they've just somehow updated these stands for them. Hers is really quite firm and it holds her in a nice position. So I don't find that I'm having to compensate with the figure. I can do whatever pose with her I would like to. The hair is very similar to the way Mars's hair was, where it's long and it's got the pieces that can flare out from the sides so that it looks a bit more like the wind's blowing or she's attacking. The downside with her hair, and I can't remember if this was an issue for me with Mars, was because of how it sits, it's right in the way of this stand that's holding her up from the waist. And there isn't really any way to get around that unless you're posing your figure off to the side. So something to be aware of is, to have her head dead on, you run into a little bit of a problem having her chin up to be able to see it because of this base on the stand. But the back of her is done very well. They made sure that the bow was the correct color back here, so that's a bonus also. I've heard some people complain that they find with the jointed figures that seeing the joints bothers them. They find it kind of creepy. That's never been a problem for me. I mean, she just looks like she has knees and ankles and wrists, so I really like the way that they look. And they have the same clasp system for her waist there. As I mentioned, the mask hand was one of the additional hands that came with her. I had put that one on there. And it's really just that easy to snap the pieces in and out. They do feel fairly firm for the joints. I don't notice any looseness or wiggling. It doesn't feel like I'm worried about pulling a piece off. Similar to the other figures as well. And this one I find, I haven't messed with her face at all. And yet it's really easy for me to get in there and get the bangs off of her. So I would say that's a bit of an improvement. Like you do want it tight in place, but you don't want to feel like you're going to break your figure when you're trying to change her up. So same setup as the other figures where the pieces go in and out. I'll put a new face on her here just because we can. I tend to like leaving the figures set up on my shelf where they look like they're attacking. So we'll snap in one of the other faces here. And then just to see how it looks, we will snap in the Sailor V mask bangs. These ones are a little tougher to get in, partially because they're going over top of a face and they have the mask built right in place. So I don't find that snapping that in is as easy maybe as the other bangs felt to come off. So we'll set her back on the stand here and we'll take a look at Artemis, who came with her. I guess one other thing of note with the figure, I find it really interesting that they decided to include the Sailor V pieces, and it must have been successful enough because they did announce that they're doing a Sailor V Figuart figure in her, I guess, original Sailor V costume. So she obviously must have been popular enough that people wanted to see another figure for her, but since she was never featured in the anime, and while I've read the Sailor V manga, it's not my favorite. I don't think it's as well defined as Sailor Moon, so I probably won't be getting that figure for myself. Now, she also included Artemis. Much like the Luna figure, he's posed exactly the same. And much like the Luna figure, unfortunately, he did not include any kind of a base, so he suffers from a bit of the same problem with the positioning of his feet, where standing him up, he's a little wobbly. You really have to make sure that he's well positioned, just nice and even. The other thing, much like Luna, his tail really doesn't have much in terms of articulation, a little bit here and there, but nothing particularly notable. And his head does turn as well. But I recall the Luna figure having a neck. Artemis doesn't seem to have anything that resembles a neck, so he's sort of, I don't know, he looks a little squat to me as a result. Usually I kind of lean the cat figure up against the base of the figure on the shelf so that he does have a little support behind him. Otherwise, even just walking past, I've noticed with a little bit of a heavy foot, they do tend to fall over on me, but that could just be that I'm stomping around like an elephant. So all in all, I would say that I'm quite happy with the Sailor Venus Figuart figure. She falls in line with all the other articulation that the other figures have. Her hair is very similar to Mars's hair. I don't love that her toes aren't articulated, so her feet just stay flat other than being able to move them at the ankles. And I would have liked to have seen, I don't know, maybe something different with Artemis, considering how the Luna figure was. Obviously, it's a lot more cost effective for them to use the exact same base and just paint it a different color, so I'm not surprised that he's exactly the same as Luna. It just would have been nice if he had been maybe posed a little differently, sitting or something like that. If any of you have seen the Legend Studios versions of these figures that are coming out for the S season, they've finally released a color version of Sailor Moon and opened her up for prototype, or not prototype, pre-orders. Initially, the prototype that we saw where it was not colored looked quite good. The colored version, personally, I'm not too happy with, but the Luna in that set is in a seated pose, so something like that for Artemis would have been nice, as opposed to just getting the exact same thing in the exact same shape. Even a flip, like reversing his head body direction, which I guess I technically could do now that I'm thinking about that. Ta-da, it's like a whole new figure. So if you're collecting the Figuarts line, I would highly recommend continuing your collection with the Venus figure. But if you are more of a fan of her as Sailor V for some reason, despite her limited presence that way, I don't think there's going to be anything significantly different in terms of faceplates for the V figure. It's mainly the different body. So you could get her that way instead of this way if you're not a completionist. I would say that again, you can interchange hands and whatnot between the different characters. So she's an essential part of the team and was kind of a must-have for me. I believe she is still available online at a few different locations at a pretty good price as of the time I was recording this. Um, Amy had her up, which was where I got her, and their pre-order, I don't know if the price has gone back up, but usually they discount things pretty good for the pre-orders. I suspect that Amazon will probably have another pre-order if they haven't already, because this is the second edition release. So that is also a really good place to get a good price, as long as you're not in a rush and you don't mind waiting until it's available domestically. And I'm hoping with this being the second edition release that we'll see some second editions on Saturn, Jupiter, uh, maybe Uranus and Neptune. They were supposed to be, exclusive figures to a certain location, and then that didn't end up being the case. But Uranus was one of those that I think I mentioned before, came with an exclusive bonus faceplate for Sailor Moon with her first edition release. So if they do a second edition, the first ones will probably increase in value, and I would not expect that bonus to be present in the next edition. But with Venus, you are safe to get the second edition or the first because they are watching my video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will be working on. Let me know what you're looking forward to the most. Thanks.